folks, welcome to the first edition of what I'm going to call, it's going to be called In the Lab Demo. And I'm going to run these probably once a month with various vendors, throughout our stack. And the goal is very simple. You guys in your surveys and in your input said, hey, you like more demo. So we're going to try to focus these sessions on the demo and trying to get the product in front of you a little bit longer. So that way you guys can ask great questions, etc. And we got a great topic today. It's a newly released integration. We have Red Canary on today, and we're going to be talking about their Zscaler integration. And for those who don't realize, Red Canary is part of Zscaler, and they're now officially integrated with today's webinar. So I'm excited to jump into this topic, and I got a great panel of guests on. And for those who don't know me, my name is Pete Downing, and I'm the Alchemy host, and I run these in the labs every month. But behind the scenes, I run our digital marketing, among other things here at Alchemy, and been here almost 4 years. So I've been here a long time and been in this industry for a long while as well. All right, now on the phone, we got Mr. Tim Ashford. And Tim, let us know what you do for Red Canary and where are you based?
You got it. Hey, everyone. I've been with Red Canary about 5.5 years. I'm a director of our strategic alliances. I've helped build the relationships across our key tech and go-to-market partners. And I'm based in Westport, Connecticut.
Awesome. And then I got to ask, are you Red Sox or Yankees?
I'm about not equally distant between the two, but I'm a bit of a fair weather friend. I like
Ah,
whoever's winning and whatever's getting it exciting.
oh, awesome. Well, I grew up, it's funny. I'm a Boston guy, grew up in Massachusetts. And when I grew up in Pittsfield and way Berkshire County. And you can only watch the Yankees, but I'm a Red Sox fan. So I grew up a Red Sox fan. So, all
Understandable.
right. On the phone also, we got Dylan. Dylan, give yourself an intro and where are you based and what do you do for Red Canary?
Sure thing. My name is Dylan Solomon. I'm a principal product manager at Red Canary. Been there a little over 2 years. I was brought in to help with some new product initiatives that were happening, some new things that we've launched in the last couple of years. And as we kind of have been merging into Zscaler, I've also been taking the lead on a lot of the integrations that we've been building to Zscaler products. Yeah, so I'm based out of New York City, but I am not a Yankees fan because it's not where I'm actually from. So I am a sad Padres fan who's never tasted victory before.
Oh, so you're a California guy. So
Yeah.
all right. And yeah, it's fun. You're in the hot seat of integrating, trying to create the integrations. That's cool. So yeah, it's a fun story. So back when I was in product management, Citrix got acquired a little known company called Ardence, and I kind of had to do the similar activity of integrating the acquired product into this big thing called Citrix. So it was a fun project. So I miss those days sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, so today we're changing up the flow a little bit. So this is gonna be, again, this is based on inputs from you all, and you guys came and said, "Hey, Pete, we want to see, more demo, whiteboard, more tech." So we're gonna try this out, like I said, once a month, and feature different vendors. We'll still be doing our other in the labs, and I'm gonna be stressing those as well to have more demo, more whiteboardy type stuff as well. But the goal here is to allow some other vendors to partake in my in the lab sessions. So, first, I always pull the audience in. We'll be doing some polling in a minute, but I may sneak a poll in here and there depending on, the content. So be ready. The next goal is, hey, we're gonna limit the slide work. So that was a lot of feedback. So I try to limit it to about 10 minutes. And we put the focus more on the demo. Now that said, if they're going to talk roadmap, I want to hear about the roadmap. So we'll hear some little roadmappy slides today, which is good, and it helps you guys understand, hey, where is Red Canary and Zscaler going together? And so we again keep the slideware minimum, and then finally we focus on demo and or whiteboard. And the reason why I put in whiteboard is because in June, I'm going to be featuring a speaker who is going to do 100% whiteboard session, and he has it like on the glass, and we're going to be featuring that. So be ready for that. I'll be launching that in the next week. I'm just making sure the date still works for the target speaker. All right. So as we go through today's session, I really want you guys to think about, how you are treating blocked traffic, right? And, if you get a blocked alert and you feel like, oh, it's solved, do you just resolve it and then just move on with your day? Or do you go and dig a little deeper and figure out, all right, where is it coming from? Where did it originate from? Did it come from the web? Did it come from SSO? Did it come from where, and really get down to the root cause, because where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And so that's really what we're going to kind of hone in today is, getting better visibility around an alert, and also being able to sift through alerts a lot more efficiently. So that's kind of what I want to have everybody think about. And as we're thinking about that, I'm going to pass over the baton to Tim, and Tim's going to take us through some of the baseline for the demo so we all understand what they're going to show and tell today, and what's going to be part of Dylan's demo, and get you guys teed up for an awesome demo.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pete. And my goal, as we said, is to keep it really short on slides. My only reason for really giving you a couple of slides is basically context, right? Who is Red Canary? Why should you care? We are a very mission-driven organization. As I said, I've been here almost 6 years, and we've always had a mission to try to enable our customers to be able to do their best work without fear of a cyber attack. We've done that in so many different ways by giving away free insights into the market. If you go to our website, there's all kinds of goodies that are available for free. We have an entire team at part of our org that just empowers security leaders at no cost. We help facilitate Atomic Red Team. That's just how we roll. We really want to make everyone able to do their jobs better. And we know that we're addressing a problem together where the attack surface is growing exponentially now with AI. You have so many different ways that attacks are coming at you. And we just want to be able to help augment your efforts. We want to be there to help, be an extension of your team and to do that with high integrity and with real extra mile effort. So, think about maybe your biggest operational challenge when you think about defending your attack surface. Is it AI? Is it identity? What would that area be? And look, again, the goal of having an NDR, if you want to understand like the why, is really just to find the sweet spot of where we can do our best work so you can do your best work. We often find that teams who have a lack of L1, L2 activity, we can really fill in on the attacks that most customers get. We've seen them over thousands of customers over 13 years. We have very highly reliable data. And when it comes to like identify, protect, detect, respond, that's our sweet spot. We do it across all those key integrations. And you can really focus on the response. You can really focus on the custom apps in your environment. And we partner so well together with companies all the way up to like household names in finance and healthcare and social media. So just very briefly, for the technically inclined in the audience, here's why Red Canary provides such value to customers. And when I say value, we have a 99.6% fidelity rate, meaning we publish a threat to a customer says back to us 99.6% of the time, yeah, that was a real threat. That's unheard of in the industry. No one else that I know of publishes those kind of results because they don't get them. And so this is how our platform works. To the far right, you can see that we're ingesting data from many different inputs, as we said before: identity, SaaS, cloud, endpoint. We now ingest Zscaler, ZIA data, and we use all kinds of means to make that data come to life and really produce high fidelity threats. We use threat intelligence and threat research. We have suppression technology. We have a platform where we're adding delta ad detections on top. And the output can go to a SIEM, it can go to a SOAR, it can go to your SOC. We can produce those high fidelity results right to whichever output you want. And we have just a unique blend of all those different types of pieces to the puzzle. And you might say, okay, well, so what? Prove it. Show me that this actually has value. Well, here is a great slide. This comes from any user's portal, any company's portal. It's not doctored. This is a snapshot right from a real customer over a year plus time frame. This is a customer with a very large footprint. They have 34,000 endpoints. They happen to use Microsoft Defender, which I've worked very closely with the product and engineering team in Israel for Microsoft. They're crackerjack. They do superb work. It's a great product. But it doesn't catch everything. So for example, in this particular case, we're over ingesting by a huge amount on the front end for this customer. We ingested a half a petabyte of data at the front end. We use machine learning and AI and all kinds of things to shrink that down to about 2,000 different events that we have humans look at, which is what you see in red. So for years we've done that noise reduction without human intervention. And what's the result? 66 high severity threats published to this customer, the kind of things that if you ignore, they could be extinction level events to your business. And the thing that I would highlight in the circle at the bottom is 23 of those high severity threats were found by Red Canary detection only, meaning that all the goodness coming out of Defender found about 2/3. We found another 1/3 of those scary events that need immediate attention with Red Canary expertise only. So let's talk now about why this matters in the new normal where we got acquired by Zscaler. And to Pete's point, like, how does blocked make you more or less secure? How do you use the context of the rich data coming out of Zscaler to improve detection values? So Dylan, let me toss it to you. Like, what do you think is the real problem here when it comes to network context versus our core context? What are we struggling with?
Yeah, and it's not always just network, but we're focusing there today. When you have your endpoint protection or your identity protection, you're often focused on, hey, these are the assets I'm trying to protect, right? Like I want to be as close to those sources as possible. I want to see what's coming out of my endpoints, what's coming out of my cloud control plane, what's coming out of my email inboxes. But there's a lot of stuff that links all those together. Think of network telemetry as like the third leg on a stool, right? In fact, I think the SOC visibility triad, right, that Gardner publishes says, hey, network is this third pillar of visibility that you need into this customer environment. So what ends up happening is when you see something in one set of products, there's often some follow-up questions that's just like, well, what else happened here? Let's say that there was a user who clicked a malicious link. They're trying to pull down some file that is malware. You may need to just answer the question, hey, did this thing get blocked? I've got Zscaler. I invested in this big zero trust network.
Right.
Is this even still a threat, or did I have another control that I don't have centralized in my kind of core pane of glass? Well, now I have to go pivot over and check and ask that question myself manually. Or if I'm running that investigation, I need to check all the boxes and make sure that it's there. So that swivel chair is just another way of saying, hey, sometimes this data is going to live in more than one place. And pulling all that together efficiently and making sure that it happens every time, that it doesn't depend on an analyst to do that work and check all the boxes every single time manually is a real challenge. And that's just on the detection side. It's also true on the response side as well. So
Right.
when you have an active threat in your environment and you are trying to clean that thing up, there's always follow-up steps that often kind of get left because they're not critical. You spent some time making sure that the endpoint is isolated or that the user credentials have been reset. Okay, great. But how did that endpoint get compromised in the first place?
Right.
What network policies do you now need to change? All of those kind of follow-up steps, the more that we can shorten the time it takes to actually do that work and automate how that work is done, the less time a person is manually pivoting back and forth to their network platform or to their EDR to make those changes.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so this brings us to where our two companies really function so well together, right? Red Canary bringing in all the data and the detectors that we've had now augmented with 500 billion daily transactions out of the Zscaler universe. And again, just going through this quickly, you alluded to this. We can take we can get visibility into all kinds of things we didn't have before using ZIA. We can say, did the user actually download or send a file? Was it blocked? Are they coming from a risky location, IP domain? Like we get all this, richer context so that if a file or a network connection is made, we understand all the additional context through ZIA to help us make a determination. And again, like you said, it eliminates the manual pivoting. We can really focus on where the hair is still on fire, where there's a really true positive, and respond precisely. And this is all the more important in the age of machine speed attacks and AI, right? We want to be able to get to response. We want to get to certainty and response faster in the age of multi-threaded, mythos scary attacks. So, that's kind of where we are today. And we're alluding to the fact that we've got this enhanced integration. You're going to show that in a second. Response actions are part of that goodness. What is, before we even dive into the full demo, just let's tease out with our, we're at 9 minutes on slides. What would you say are the things you're most excited about that are coming soon, Dylan? Because
Yeah.
you're an insider on that track.
Sure. A big strength of the Red Canary platform is the herd immunity that we have, right? We ingest this data from all of these different customers, over, almost 1,000 customers worth of data, so that we can run detections centralized and across multiple customers at once. If we see something happening in one customer environment, we can immediately pivot and make sure that that is being applied across all of those environments. The same thing applies to our threat hunting. And we want to incorporate Zscaler customers and data and intel into that pipeline as well. So what's coming up next is unified threat hunting, right, across not just Red Canary, but also Zscaler customers, where we can essentially leverage trends that we're seeing across the 8,000 customers that Zscaler has and the 1,000 customers that Red Canary has to say, hey, this is something that we want to look at and hunt for, because we're already seeing it even in a customer that is not a Red Canary customer or is not a Zscaler customer.
That
Similarly,
makes
for
total sense.
intel, Zscaler has a number of intel sources like threat labs, like their app total products and things like that, that we can incorporate into the Red Canary kind of intel feeds that we consume, and vice versa. When we see something malicious in a Zscaler environment, not a Red Canary environment, Red Canary customers should benefit from that. If we see something in Red Canary that could benefit our Zscaler friends, we want to make sure that that is flowing in both of those directions as well. So we're doing some active work there to
Awesome.
unify those feeds and automate a lot of that.
Well, that's great. So we'll I'm going to let you tee up the demo, but while you're teeing that up, maybe the audience could just think about how much time is actually invested in pivoting between those tools, right? As we're trying to keep track of threats at machine speed. So yeah, Dylan, let me pop it over to you to take us into the demo.
Yeah, and as we go through the demo, audience, please ask questions. But one thing that kind of came to mind for me is, and maybe we end cap on this as you towards the end of your demo, is like, if I'm a Zscaler customer, do I, how do I get access to the greatness you're going to show? And then obviously, if you're a Red Canary customer, you link up with Alchemy, and we can definitely get you tied into the right folks for Zscaler. But will Zscaler customers get this as part of their portfolio right now, or how's that going to work?
It's a great question. Go ahead,
So
Dylan.
yeah, think of these as kind of two different services, because we're really operating on two parts of the kind of security stack. With Zscaler, you're often focused on, zero trust and kind of network solutions, right? Whether that is replacing your firewall, replacing your VPN, and some of those kind of tools for how you're communicating, across your organization. Red Canary is is a purely detection and response solution, right? Our goal is to be your backstop, and say, hey, here, all the stuff that's managing to sneak through your security stack, we're going to get it. We're going to catch that. We're not going to miss a threat. We're not going to waste a ton of your time on a bunch of false positives or throw a bunch of work over the fence to you to work on. That's where we go into that 99% accuracy rate that we're very proud of. We don't miss stuff, and we do a pretty good job at making sure that what we bubble up to you is actually important to take a look at.
Awesome. And I see you have the same problem I have, lots of tabs.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's an addiction. I don't think I'll find a cure anytime soon. So I'm just going to show off a few things about the Red Canary portal that are important, but we're going to focus in on just a few parts of it. There's a ton here, obviously. We don't need to go into all of it today, but unless folks have questions about something they're seeing on the screen. Where I am going to start is on threats, because as far as we are concerned, that's where we want our customers focused, active threats in their environment. There is actually, let me take one step back to set some context. That report that Tim showed earlier, that literally does live in the portal for every customer. So when we have a customer who needs to show their boss, why are we purchasing Red Canary? Why are we paying for this product? What's the value of this Red Canary MDR solution? This is a snapshot of what that value means. I had 2,500 alerts in this little demo environment over the course of 3 months. I also went back, Red Canary went back and looked through all of my raw telemetry as well and found a few other things that might be interesting that could bubble down into a set of events that are worth looking at. But at the end of the day, what did this turn into? 63 actual threats that I needed to actually spend some time responding to, not 2,400. So we want to get you out of alert triage mode, which is how a lot of our new customers come to us, and they're used to thinking of, tell me what to do with each of these alerts. I can't even get through the list, to saying, hey, no. It's 63 things in 3 months that you actually needed to respond. That's what we want to get everyone mentally thinking about, is like, all right, now I have time for those other projects. Now I have time to focus on the vulnerabilities that I wanted to close out, that sort of stuff. So what does a threat look like? I'm focusing on this first because this is where, for most of our customers, they're probably interacting with from a detection standpoint. We have already essentially done the investigation, and we are publishing to them what they need to know about that threat. In a threat, it'll look something like this, where we explain to you in kind of high-level language what happened and who was involved. It's often one endpoint or one identity, but it can also be a collection, right, of multiple identities or multiple endpoints that might be all kind of related to a single incident of some kind. There's always the ability to kind of drill further and to understand why and how this fits into the attack chain. Was there something that we could have caught earlier? Was this the last step, and DLP was happening and data was being exfiltrated and we just barely got there? Like, understanding where in the attack chain something is fitting helps you to understand, is there something we could be doing earlier so that we don't have to wait till this is like truly a high critical problem, as well as where did this problem come from, right? What were the sources that helped me to find this? Was this something that, if I didn't have Red Canary, it wouldn't have helped, or if I didn't have my, email security tool, I wouldn't have gotten to. This is going to help you understand where that data is coming from. But the money for any threat is going to be the threat timeline. It's going to basically be the story that our analyst has put together to show you, here are the transactions that matter. Of all of the thousands of back and forth that are going to come out of your EDR or out of your IDP or whatever it might be, here are the important records, all correlated and explained if it's not clear, right? So in this case, some process spawned. Let's explain why that's unusual to us. This is where the problem is, right? There's an indicator of compromise. We're noting they're going out to a website or an IP address that that we know is actually kind of a known bad site. Let's make sure we've got that marked down. Let's make sure that we know everything we can about it as we're pulling this out, and share that with the customer. So basically putting together the story of all the things that happened, as well as, and this is a long thread, holy cow, as well as comments on how you might address this if you were to see something like this in the future as well. Now, that said, when we publish a threat, this is just part one. There's also mitigating this threat. This is just saying, hey, there's a problem and it needs some manual intervention to resolve. What comes next is often us reaching out, paging that customer. We have a whole call tree that we maintain where we can get you, if it's a critical threat in the middle of the night, we can help you with that. We also have our active remediation. If you want us to do that initial remediation, hands on keyboards, we can be the ones to be responsible for logging in and doing essentially the initial cleanup as much as we can, or as much as you authorize us to do. And of course, we have a built-in SOAR platform. So the way that folks are often taking initial action is to try to take that action automatically. Now this, and let me just drill in to one of these playbooks and just show you some of the possible actions. This often, for like an endpoint that was compromised, will come down to isolating an endpoint, or making sure that we're restricting either some kind of app execution or some kind of file that we know is a problem on there. If this were something like an identity, it's more likely to be like, we need to suspend this identity or reset some credentials in some way. Or for example, if this were Zscaler and we want to update the network, like we find an IOC that is a known bad IP address or domain that we know we should probably be denying in the future, let's add that to our network policies, add it to the destination IP group so that's banned on the firewall level. Or if it's like a a bad URL that we know links to a bad file. Maybe we throw that in a banned URL category so that at the application level it's blocked. Or if it's a bad file hash, let's make sure that's blocked on the network too, so that it can be sandboxed the next time that file comes down the wire, even if it's coming from another location that we don't anticipate.
And Dylan, this is something that Pete kind of highlighted at the beginning, which is block doesn't necessarily mean secure. What's great about these response actions, and I think we are unique among MDRs in being able to provide these native to Zscaler, is that we can go beyond simply, hey, the file was blocked. We can say, wherever that file came from, the URL, the domain, other things further upstream, we can restrict, as you said, from all the other people in the Zscaler domain. So it has great applicability for the Zscaler population in a way that I don't think any other MDR can do right now.
Yeah. And with that response as well, we often use it as automation, but it doesn't have to be full automation, right? This is a SOAR where we can add approval workflows and make sure that there's still a human in the loop if we need to, as we get comfortable with this. We often have customers who say, hey, look, between these, kind of off hours, I just want this to run. But during like business hours, send this to my desk first, instead of trying to run it on your own. There's also, sequencing that you can do. You can say, hey, first I want to try banning it here. If that works, then I also want to do some follow-up actions, so on and so forth. So this remediation and automation platform is an important step because we really, really want to shorten that MTTR, that time to resolve or remediate these threats. This is a part of how we do it, but there's some other parts as well. So I'm going to take one step back because I've kind of jumped into the response side, but I want to go back to the detection side as well, because I know there's probably a few questions around how did you get this detection to be so high a quality, right? Someone says, I have a 99.6% accuracy rate. My first question would be, that sounds too good to be true, maybe. How are you doing that? So number one, how do we measure what 99.6% accuracy means? Part of that comes from our customers. It's literally when our customers report that we're wrong, we go ding ourselves and we add that to the list. At the bottom of any threat that we publish, we're not assuming we're right. The customer has to come in here and explicitly say, hey, this is remediated, this is good, this was a positive, or no, you guys were wrong. This is a false positive. Let me tell you why. What's the reason for that? They can basically give us some explicit feedback about what they see and what they think. The opposite is true too. This is for false positives, of course, where we've published a threat and the customer is basically disagreeing and say, actually, no. But there's also mechanisms for customers to report things that they think should have been published as threats. Again, those will essentially generate detection quality reviews for us internally. All of that goes into those numbers, that 99.6 number that we're talking about.
I can't help but
So it's
ask,
like,
Dylan.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, so it's like the ways of threat detection. So like if you're on the highway and it's showing there's no traffic, but there's traffic, you can say, hey, no, there's traffic. So in this case,
Yeah.
hey,
Or
it did.
here,
Yeah,
confirmed. Policeman is
yeah.
right there.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
recognized very early on that the only way to do this right in the long run is you have to be able to learn from the mistakes.
Mm,
This has been going for 10 years. We have now 10 years worth of this kind of feedback where customers have explicitly told us when we were wrong and we're
mm.
given a really easy way to do it. So they're happy to do it, right? And that only has a virtuous cycle on our ability to then get better at this. So we can use this information to say, why were we wrong? Let's tune this detector to be even more accurate the next time, or tune how we're doing those investigations next time.
What are some of the reasons why customers say this is, in our context, this is actually non-malicious activities? So things like, pen testing, like what kinds of things do they give back to us that we learn from?
Yeah, I mean, the most common is going to be some kind of attempt at testing, right? Oh, I was actually downloading that malware because I was trying to test some new functionality that I set up. We might spend that time explaining to them how they should probably use Atomic Red Team or some other safer way to do that. But more likely, what we're going to do is try to learn, okay, well, who typically does that testing? What tools can we expect them to be using? Do you want us to detect that stuff next time? Or do you want us to exclude that from the detection we're doing? Because for some customers, what they're doing is they're trying to test us. They want us to catch it. They want us to publish the threat. If they say that it was testing that was explicit and okay, we won't count that again as a false positive. We'll say, okay, you were trying to trigger us and we got triggered. Good, right? But if it's, non-testing activity or otherwise something that they want us to ignore, they have some options to do that. One of those options is what we call agentic tuning or customizations. Essentially, a customer can tell us about their environment. When we publish threats, we operate off of a model of this is what is best for the kind of 1,000 customers that we have under the Red Canary umbrella, but every customer is a little bit different. Hey, I actually have a remote access tool that even though for many customers you would publish a threat for, in my organization, it's an accepted tool for my support team or within these certain groups within this team. So they can either provide us explicit answers to questions like a Q&A that we ask them, or they could just write it out in plain English. Just tell us explicitly, these IP addresses or these user groups or the sales org is going to be in Texas between these dates, and so ignore changes in geolocation for these users and these groups. You could do whatever you like. We will use that to explicitly say, hey, do we need to suppress any threats that we normally would have published? We will still go through the investigation and the investigative process. But right before we publish that threat, another one of our agents will run and say, hey, I think that they've given us some instructions that will cause us to suppress this threat. Do you still want to publish this thing? We can always override if we see like follow-on activity or anything like that. But that gives customers a way to essentially tune out the noise before it gets to us. We also do the same thing with what we call inferred instructions. When you say that it's something is a false positive, we're trying to draw lessons out of what you're marking as false positive because, if we do it one time, it's understandable. What we want to prevent is someone who has to go back over and over again and say, I told you last time that was a false positive for those kinds of users. So that's where these inferred instructions come out. We pull those lessons out. We generate what we think is the suppression rule that should come out of that lesson. And the users, of course, the customer has to still approve and say, yep, that's the right lesson to learn from that. And then going forward, that's that. Those kinds of threats will be suppressed the next time. So that helps us keep our false positive rate low. We also have, of course, some stuff on the other side. How do we make sure that we're not missing threats? What else feeds into this detection cycle? If you're ever curious, there's a few things I'll highlight here. Number one, within Red Canary, we share all of our analytics that we publish, our detectors that we publish in a detector library. You can come in here and search for all kinds. Probably the more interesting ones are the behavioral analytics. So we'll, let's say, filter on these just to get a good idea. We will tell you in plain English what these things mean. So you can drill in on anything and see, oh, this is the purpose of this detector. This is kind of where it fits in the MITRE framework. What's the actual explicit detector logic and all that kind of stuff. The key here is this is all centralized. Everyone gets these detectors. You don't have to wait for us to deploy it in your customer environment. You don't have to check some box to get it. We are rolling these things out every single day. In fact, if I go here to the activity feed, even in the last day, there's some new detectors being added or tuned or tweaked or activated constantly. And so essentially that detector coverage is herd immunity coverage. We might be building this not because we saw something here in this environment, but because we saw something, 5 customers over, but everyone still gets to benefit from it.
Can you go back to that exact detector that you just clicked on? I don't know if you did this on purpose. Well, we were talking about this yesterday, you and I, and Truffle Hog in particular is a really interesting story. Talk a little bit about that. What was discovered and how did that particular detector save the day, if you will?
Yeah, so this Truffle Hog is a kind of a credential gathering tool that's not necessarily like malware, but it's often used for nefarious purposes. We had a threat hunter who had a theory that this could be used for bad things and decided to run a threat hunt, found some problems, and then decided, okay, well, let's build a detector for this. This detector then was sitting in Red Canary for, I don't know, for a while, I believe, without firing until it started firing on some behaviors that we didn't like. What ended up happening was this actually was how the sales loft drift compromise was being started, was this Truffle Hog tool. And we essentially unknowingly were already detecting and stopping this compromise in our customer environments about a month before anyone had published anything about it publicly.
And this is
This
not
is
unusual. We've had other times where just because of the way we design detectors, we get ahead of things that haven't even hit Twitter or X yet. I think the
yeah.
Kaseya incident was another one.
Yes, so this happens a lot, but it's basically because for us, security happens in layers. We run threat hunts, for example. Let me pick a different environment because I don't think we'll be able to see any threat hunts in that demo environment. Um, since none of them will apply to that demo system. So we run threat hunts that are, again, across our customer bases. So we're not just saying, oh, we're going to threat hunt for Acme Co. and then, Pepsi and then Coke. It's no, 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 no. Everyone, let's hunt everyone all at once. If everyone's got, let's say, Defender or whatever it is that we're looking for, let's apply this across everybody at once. What that also means is um, we include threat hunting as part of the MDR service that we provide. And we do that because we want our threat hunters to tell us when they find stuff or when they don't find stuff and have that feed into what we do on the detector side. So we don't want them to just say, oh, I found something. How interesting. I did a great job. It's like, no, 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 no. Next time, I don't want it to be a threat hunt. I want this to turn into a detector so that this can be automated and we'll never have to hunt again. It will just, when it shows up, we will see it. So we try to make sure that we have feedback loops at all levels, what our customers are telling us, what our internal analysts are telling us, and let's make sure that's always feeding up and into the chain.
So
So
when,
hunts look like this, and you can always see what we're hunting on. We don't publish every hunt we run, but we try to publish like the more interesting ones, not always the ones that find anything. Sometimes they're just negative hunts, but we try to publish the ones that we think people will learn from and understand and find timely and stuff like that.
so for the less security versed in the room, so when you say threat hunt, are they literally trying to find the threat and take it
Yeah.
all apart and then
So a
try to
hunt
figure out
is
how to
what you might
resolve it?
call, yeah, you can think of it as like a proactive looking for something that you have no evidence for yet. So they'll start with like a hypothesis. I think that this could be a problem. It might start with some kind of intel. So for example, you'll see a bunch of these recent hunts are probably like Iranian kind of related stuff. You know, it would be timely to be looking for some known things that are related to, threat groups that are there or operated there. So let's go ahead and proactively just go hunt for it
Okay.
and see if we see any evidence. And then our customers know if the threat hunt was successful, okay, great. We can be reassured that there's some threats published and we're covered. Or the hunt was not successful. We didn't find anything. That's reassuring too. Iran is not on my back door. I don't have to worry about that for now. I can focus my efforts elsewhere now.
And in either case, all the customers benefit. It's not just for one customer, it's for everybody.
Yeah. So
So
another
what
way,
about, just given the shortness of time, yeah, oh, please cover the agents. I was going to say
oh
we have
yeah.
to cover ZIA, but definitely talk about our use of AI. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we have a whole set of agents that, we again try to share our work and show customers what's there. So we don't want our AI use to be this black box where you don't get to see what we're doing. We also have a very specific philosophy on agentic technologies. We've been using agents as part of our framework and to help like supercharge our analysts for a long time. And where they're most effective is where you don't just give a prompt to Claude and hope that he kind of one-shots the problem and can figure it out. Instead, you put them on the rails and you say, look, you have a really specific job to do. It's got to be like a specific source, a specific type of problem that we really understand all of the ins and outs of. And we can give you the SOP and make sure that you're not deviating from that each time. So we generate these agents to be like repeatable, to not have a lot of power, but just do exactly the job that we're setting them out to do. And then we turn them out at scale, right, across all these customer environments. So this is some examples of that. Let me
So
kind
the
of,
one that says investigation agent, Red Canary EDR, kind
mhm.
of lower left there, if you click on the highlight, does that show you all of the steps it takes, like what it
Yes.
does?
So in kind of English, it'll show you the steps. So, what are essentially how does it run its investigation that it's putting together? These investigation agents are basically kind of doing the pre gathering steps, information gathering steps. And then when the analyst takes a look, there's a bunch of work already done, a bunch of lookups and other things that have happened on their behalf. And of course, we can see where it's applied in this particular customer environment and that sort of thing. Let me show you an example. I'll go to investigations. You think of an investigation as the work that Red Canary is doing on your behalf. So if threats are just the actual positive events that we need your feedback on, investigations. Oops, I'm sorry. This is a customer portal. Let me go back to the demo where I know we will not accidentally show any PII or anything like that. An investigation is like a case file that we're going to put in front of an analyst and say, hey, anything here that you think we need to take another look at? Should we publish a thread on this? Or is this yet another false positive? 9 times out of 10 is going to be false positive. Well, those agents are going to run out and do essentially the side jobs, the side work. Some of this is automatically pulled together, right, in terms of the main investigation. But in this case, for example, we're pivoting out to Zscaler and saying, hey, there's some related data from ZIA, and we need to understand what it means. There's 100 and something records that we're seeing coming from our ZIA web logs. What do all those records actually mean? Well, let's bubble that down into plain English. Look, there's a few user agent strings that we're seeing. This traffic was not inspected. Access was allowed. So if this were like a threatening thing that we're investigating, we know it wasn't blocked by Zscaler. But we can also be reassured, like, we don't see any DLP rules being triggered. There weren't any uploads or downloads, right? There's no risk associated with the site that we can see. That's all good stuff, right? That helps reassure us that there's nothing inherently about that Zscaler knew that could have tipped us off that this was a problem. But we're going to run these checks every time, right? And then share those results with our analyst and with the customer. Hey, did you ask all the questions? Did you consider all the angles? Well, here's the angles we considered, for example.
So again, this is where the ZIA data adds so much value is, again, it's brought to the customer of the Red Canary console. They don't have to go looking for it, pivot, swivel, but they get that information and they get really important questions answered right out the gate by the agent, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the other thing to highlight is just real quick that, one thing that's groundbreaking on this integration is for most customers to say, oh, I've got ZIA data in my SIM. The problem with that is if you're a Zscaler customer, you're paying for Zero Trust Exchange, for ZIA and other products. You're paying to have Zscaler store that data for you. And then if you pump it to your SIM through NSS or otherwise, you're paying again to store it. In this case, if you're a Red Canary customer, you're getting the detection value without having to send it to your SIM at additional cost.
Yeah.
And Pete, you were going to say something.
Yeah, and I got two things. So, hey, Tim, just can you say SIM equals what? Just for people that
for sure. For let's get rid of acronyms. The
Yeah.
SIM being that big repository, the security incident and event management, repository where you're dumping all kinds of logs that you need for legal and compliance and regulatory purposes to prove that you've got data from all your tools. That's the place you typically dump everything, right? But it's expensive.
Yeah. So what I was going to say, and Dylan, so if I'm a user and I'm using Zscaler and I connect, to set, let's say, XYZ app through ZIA, there's no change on my end that the IT department would have to make this work, correct?
No. So what we're doing here is hooking in Red Canary to the Zscaler data fabric, which is already there on the back end for most ZIA customers, as long as they have Z identity, which is like essentially the identity authentication service that comes with Zscaler. So because of that, we don't have to stream data anywhere. We can just reach out, take what we need to pull into the investigation. Now, the customer still explicitly has given us, the permission to do that from Red Canary. So we're not like reaching out without the customer okaying it. But it means that they don't have to stream that data. They don't have to set up NSS, which is essentially the streaming service that Zscaler provides. They also don't have to ingest that data anywhere else. They don't have to send it to their SIM to get that to get this kind of goodness out of there.
Cool. So is it fair to say if customer wanted to leverage this, it's fairly native to get it turned on?
Yeah, so if you have a joint Red Canary and Zscaler customer, so they have Red Canary, they have access to a portal like this, and they've already got Zscaler, there is no additional licensing needed. It's just a matter of turning it on.
Some API tinkering, basically.
Cool.
One last thing I want to say, it's a little non sequitur, but just because you covered the agentic piece, I think, customers often ask, and I understand, how do I navigate the landscape of security operations with all, not only the noise of Mythos and everything else, but with the understanding that companies are coming out of nowhere saying, we'll handle all your, detection, response, and triage through AI. And so, Dylan, when you think about that, why do you think the 13 years of experience we have puts us in a better position than, say, an AI driven SOC company that came out of stealth 6 months ago? Why should a company still trust in an OG like us versus an upstart?
Yeah. So for us, it's about making sure having those humans means having the feedback loops, right? I showed off a few of them, but I did not show off everything we do. Each one of these agents that I was talking about earlier, we ran those against our human beings for months, right? Tuning and making sure that they could do an equivalent job or a better job than our analysts before we ever, made them public for everybody.
Set them loose, right?
And the same thing happens actually over time. So these things drift. Agents don't, they're not perfect forever. Garbage gets in there and then, they stop being as accurate. Techniques change from our attackers and, these agents don't do quite as good a job. Well, you need to know when something's drifting off. We are constantly running these feedback loops and these sorts of things where we are comparing to our actual human analysts, and that allows us to also correct for those problems over time. So I think that what's really important, at least from my perspective, is that you don't frame this as an agents being the thing you need to buy. That's not the product you're trying to buy. You're trying to buy threat detection. And what we're offering at Red Canary is threat detection. Sometimes it's an agent. A lot of other times it's going to be an analyst who is just doing the work. But because we're not telling you it's got to be a robot, then you just get to be like, all right, did they detect the threat? Are they wasting my time? Or are they making me safer? And that's all that really should matter is those outcomes.
Yeah, and those agents, as you already said, they've been guardrailed to mimic the highly disciplined approach to threat detection and response we followed for 12, 13 years. Not to mention that the data they're going off, AI is only as good as the data underneath, right? Is 13 years of highly curated and highly accurate detection responses. So they're referencing that funny cartoon of like, hey, is this mushroom edible? And somebody asks the chat and it says, sure. And then they eat it and die. The next frame saying, hey, would you like to learn more about poisonous mushrooms? The issue there is the data was bad, right? But in our case, since the agents are referencing such good data, the responses are going to be more accurate going forward.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna say just one more call out to the audience. If you have any final questions, please throw them in the Q&A. That way, if we can't get to them, I can definitely get answers and we can follow up with a nice little email. And I'm going to take control if you don't mind. And
Oh, yeah.
all right, so 2 call to actions as we close out today's demo session. And the first one is I'll be sending out an email on this as well. I'll also put some links in the chat, but definitely take a chance and download the latest 2026 threat detection report from Red Canary. It's a great report. I've went through it a couple times, and it's got a lot of great information. So it definitely takes a moment to download that report and sift through it. And then when you do download it, I'll also give you a little fun side thing for it. It's a summary report. So you download this one, you get 2 for the price of 1 is kind of the catch here. And then the next item you can consider as part of your follow-up is we do offer, and we meaning Alchemy, offer what we call our attack surface assessment. And this is a great way to just get a good understanding if you are a customer of an MDR solution or you're not, or you own Zscaler, or you just don't know where to start. This is a great session. You meet with some of our security experts alongside of Red Canary to understand, all right, where can I go? How do I, where do I sit today? And then where could I go in the future? And, there's guys like Mark Grassman on our team and a lot of other folks on our team who are very versed in the security context. So those are the two follow-ups. Like I said, I'll do a follow-on email as well, but I also put the links in the chat. And with that, I'm gonna do what I always do with my sessions, and I'm gonna say, Tim, any final thoughts you want to leave with our audience today?
Yeah, I mean, the final thought I would leave everybody with is stay curious, ask good questions. I think we are at an amazing inflection point in not just cyber, but all of technology with AI. There's a lot of FUD, there's a lot of fear and unknowns. And I think if I used the word discipline before, if you keep the same discipline of asking good questions and really trying to get at real truth, I think you'll find that, companies like Zscaler and other large players like CrowdStrike and so on, we're probably going to benefit from the age of AI more than we're going to be hurt by it. Our stocks were pummeled, when things first came out about Mythos and so on. And I think those fears are really overrated. So don't take everybody else's word for it. Do your own thinking, ask your own questions.
All right. And Dylan, any final thoughts you want to leave with the audience? And
Yeah, I mean, I think that, something like MDR is a way of essentially taking work off the plate. And so you should ask yourself, if you're considering a solution like this, is it really taking work off my plate? That's the end goal, is you're safer and you're not having to do as much to get that safety.
Awesome. Well, I want to just thank you two for jumping on today. I know you're busy. And then behind the scenes, Claire and Alex, thank you for all jumping on. I know you guys got busy schedules. And audience, thank you for taking time out of a Thursday. Yes, I'll try to keep these on Thursday, but at the close, there will be a survey. So if you don't like Thursday, let me know and we can put this on a Wednesday. But I was offsetting it on purpose to see so that you guys know it's a little different than the normal webinar. But again, give me feedback. We want to hear it. And with that, and Kevin, I saw your question. Well, I'll reach out on the side and get you that answer. That's a hard answer to answer, but yes, we'll get you a good answer for that. And with that, I'm going to say thank you guys for jumping in today. And again, keep an eye out. I'm gonna be launching the next three demo scenarios coming up for the rest of the year in the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that. And as I always say, thanks for jumping in. Have a great day and see y'all on the flip side.